News.com. Everybody in the mission, the consulate, everybody there in Benghazi thought the attack on a U.S. consulate last September 11th was an act of terror from the get-go. This, according to excerpts of an interview investigators conducted with the number 2 official in Libya at the time, and obtained by CBS News' Slay the Nation. Greg Hicks, 22-year Foreign Service diplomat who was the highest-ranking U.S. official in Libya after the strike, told investigators under authority of the House Oversight Government Reform Committee. I think everybody in the mission thought it was a terror attack from the beginning, he said. Now, we could beat this Benghazi stuff to death all day today if we wanted to, and I don't really intend to do that. But this article from CBS News, and we've got some supporting audio coming up, points out 4 important things. Number 1, Greg Hicks, the top U.S. diplomat in Libya after Chris Stevens, he was right beneath Chris Stevens, knew from the get-go Benghazi was a terror attack. He wasn't even in Benghazi. Now, remember the regime saying, no, nobody knew. We thought it maybe was a bunch of ruffians, a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, reacting to the video that was causing all kinds of stuff to happen in Cairo. Remember that? And this guy said, no. We knew from the beginning. Number 2, despite Hillary's claims to the contrary, he was never contacted, Greg Hicks. I'll tell you, Hillary does not look good in all of this. Hillary doesn't come off well. These are the whistleblowers. These are the people that the regime didn't want anybody to ever hear from. And I remember all of us saying back during the time, the aftermath of Benghazi, and during the campaign last year that they're going to try to put this to bed, but this is going to come back and bite them because the excuses they were offering, video, and all this, is so public about that, it was so obviously wrong. And they were obviously trying to cover something up. The third of the 4 important things in this particular story, CBS News, is that Greg Hicks says that he knew Susan Rice was lying when she appeared in those 5 talk shows, and he was not happy about it. He knew she was lying when she said that all this happened because of this video. And the 4th point that's made, according to Greg Hicks, is that Susan Rice directly contradicted the president of Libya, who said Benghazi was a terror attack right before she came on. And this led Libya to delay the FBI's access to Benghazi. You remember, Snerdley, we were all wondering, where's the FBI? Why aren't they there? Well, the reason is the president of Libya had been embarrassed on TV. He was on CBS. He said it was a terror attack. He finishes. Susan Rice comes. No, it wasn't a terror attack. It was this video guy. The president of Libya said, you're gonna call me out like that? So he kept the FBI at bay, delayed their access to Benghazi, which hurt their investigation tremendously. I mean, all of this is pretty damning. Let's go to the audio soundbites. Grab number 14. This is Bob Schieffer's yesterday morning Face the Nation. This is how he opened the show. And you will hear Libyan President Mohamed Magharif and Susan Rice in this piece.
Today, only on Face the Nation, startling new details about the Benghazi attack from the number 2 American official in Libya. It's been almost 8 months since the attacks on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans. We'll get new details today and more insight into the stunning contradictions between the president of Libya and Ambassador to the UN Susan Rice when they appeared after the attack on Face the Nation.
This is pre-planned, predetermined.
We do not have information at present that leads us to conclude that this was premeditated or pre-planned.
So there you hear it. The Libyan president, pre-planned, premeditated terror attack, Susan Rice. No, we don't have any information like that. So they call him a liar. Now, it's Bob Schieffer here, he's okay, but I must tell you something, folks. It has to be a little insulting to whatever viewers this show has left. And Bob Schieffer tried to treat this as breaking news, that the administration and Susan Rice lied to Bob Schieffer and to everybody else's face. The viewers of this program know different. Everybody by now, by yesterday, long ago knew that Susan Rice had made it up. The only question with Susan Rice was who sent her out there and why, and who gave her that story. You know, why Susan Rice to fall on the sword, so to speak. But Schieffer yesterday was treating this, well, up until this very moment, we thought it was the video. Up until this very moment, we believe what Susan Rice said. But now this Greg Hicks guy has come forward, and we now realize that we have been lied to. Long after everybody else paying attention. We couldn't do this before the election, you see. We couldn't get anywhere near this before the election. Back to the audio soundbites. Bob Schieffer, CBS, Face the Nation. During the segment on the Benghazi attack, the host, Bob Schieffer, set up the segment by saying this. Now what he does here is a dramatic reading of the testimony that we're going to get from Greg Hicks, again, who is the 22-year Foreign Service diplomat, #2 official in Libya, right underneath the ambassador. And this is Schieffer.
The administration claimed the attack grew out of a spontaneous demonstration provoked by protests in Egypt. Greg Hicks told investigators that was simply not true. Part of what he said, Hicks, I thought it was a terrorist attack from the get-go. I think everybody in the mission thought it was a terrorist attack from the beginning. Question, did you ever have any indication that there was a protest, a popular protest outside the mission in Benghazi? Greg Hicks, no question. And if there was such a protest, would that have been reported? Hicks, absolutely. For there to have been a demonstration on Chris Stevens' front door and him not to have reported it is unbelievable.
I'm telling you, they're blowing this thing sky high. They're blowing it up. Now, remember what we heard. Let's take you back. Benghazi happens. It's a brief timeline. 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when Washington ostensibly becomes aware, the White House. Obama talks to the Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta, and to Hillary. Says, you guys deal with it however you need, and vanishes. And nobody to this day knows what Obama was doing in the next 5 to 8 hours. Honestly, if somebody knows, please tell me. I don't think anybody knows. Earlier in the day in Cairo, if you will recall, somebody at our embassy, remember it's the 9/11 anniversary, somebody at our embassy put out an apology. Nothing had happened. And somebody in our embassy issued an apology and a justification for protests that might occur against the embassy in Egypt. Nothing had happened. That apology came before anything had happened. We're all sitting here saying, what in the world are we apologizing for now? Then the protests started. And somebody attempted to get in the embassy, if you recall, and climbed over the walls. That is what led the Obama administration to say that that protest was spawned by the video. And that protest inspired an ad hoc protest at Benghazi. Nothing was going to happen in Benghazi until this ad hoc, ad-lib protest happened in Cairo after we apologized. And there was nothing to apologize for, just some typical left-winger in our embassy over there decided to go PC and try to stop any protest by apologizing for the United States in advance. Honest to God, I know many of you probably forgotten this, but that's what really got that day going, was somebody in our embassy apologizing. Nothing had happened. We later learned that the apology was written by some subordinate staff member in an attempt to stop any protest from taking place. Yes, if we're just nice to them, and if we just admit that it's all our fault, and maybe they won't attack us today. That's the thinking on these people's part. Well, that was just an invitation, and the mob began to attack the embassy in Cairo. So the White House immediately distanced itself from that apology. The first thing they did was to distance themselves from that apology, saying that it was a rogue staff member acting on her own over there. And then they said that a video, at which time nobody ever heard of or seen, was responsible for that protest. Then Benghazi happened, and the administration said, Hillary, Susan Rice, everybody said the video inspired the protest in Cairo, and that inspired an ad-lib protest at Benghazi. Now, what we know is that what happened in Benghazi had nothing to do with what happened in Cairo. We had a planned, premeditated terror attack in Benghazi, 4 Americans killed, including the ambassador. For weeks after, the administration continued to try to blame the video, some video that nobody had seen. The filmmaker, by the way, that video is still in jail somewhere in California. Hillary and Obama cut public service announcement type commercials that ran on Pakistan TV apologizing for the United States and that video, and claiming that all of this protest activity had nothing to do with anything other than that video. None of that was true. Bob Schieffer, ABC, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, you name it, all ran with the video story for weeks. And now the number 2 man is coming forth and saying none of that is true. That's what this is all about. And Bob Schieffer, I think he's got an exclusive here because Hicks' testimony was leaked to them first, his upcoming testimony. So all of this that is being reported yesterday and today in the drive-by media was known before the election, folks. All of it was. So Obama gets reelected under false pretenses, under a timeline story that's made up. Remember how we were called racists and sexists for complaining about Susan Rice's lies? The only reason anybody was disagreeing with her because she's black. Yep, we were racist, and a woman, and we were sexist. And the mainstream media even said that people challenging the veracity and honesty of Susan Rice is just the GOP's war on women. That's all it was, they said. And make sure we remember here, Obama was only talking to Panetta because they had a previously scheduled meeting at 5 o'clock. It wasn't even Benghazi that forced the meeting. Obama was scheduled to meet with Panetta at 5 o'clock anyway. Benghazi just happened to come up at the end of that meeting. Obama never even had a meeting devoted to Benghazi. Who was the person most attacked in the days after the Benghazi attack? Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was the person most attacked in the media after Benghazi because he dared issue a statement after the protests in Cairo. He dared act presidential during the campaign, and the media launched into him as creating problems for America. It's not his role.